Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Chris Talks Football podcast, episode number 21 of this show. And of course, today we'll be looking at all of the things that have happened in the Premier League. The Premier League is taking pause this weekend, obviously, match day number 23. So it looks like we're well into the second half of the season. Big stories this weekend. A lot of goals that have happened, a lot of key incidents. As ever, we'll be talking about VAR and its controversies that have happened this weekend. We'll also talk about the EFL as well, because the EFL, of course, is well into the second half of the season as well. And of course, we'll be still looking into the potential transfers that will be happening. So hopefully, we are in for a bumper episode today. So then, in the Premier League, the latest result rather, was at Liverpool against Manchester United, and Liverpool have gone 16 points clear of Manchester United after a really important 2-0 victory. And the goals for Liverpool were scored by Virgil van Dijk and Mohamed Salah. And it's absolutely brilliant what Liverpool have done over the last couple of months. Obviously, they're still unbeaten. They still haven't lost yet in the Premier League. But yeah, like 2-0, that is incredible. Against Manchester United as well. Of course, Man United did beat Norwich last weekend. It was a decent result for them. But, it wasn't really like beating Chelsea or beating Tottenham like they did a month or so back. But Liverpool, goals from Virgil van Dijk and Salah helped the Reds to a 2-0 victory. 16 points clear. They've got 16 games left. So, yeah, it's pretty much like the title race is over. 100%. Like, I cannot see Manchester City catching them, or Leicester for that matter. But that is it now. That is it. Liverpool have won the title. Start celebrating now. The champagne is pretty much popped. Obviously, they'll probably focus on the Champions League as well as the league. But Liverpool just are ruthless. And yeah, goals from Mo Salah and Virgil van Dijk, as I said, helped them to a victory. For Van Dijk's goal, it was Trent Alexander-Arnold that swung in the delivery. Great corner in. And Van Dijk getting his head on it, like always. Of course, he's a tall, good defender in the air. The only thing for Manchester United that is a little bit concerning is why Brandon Williams, who's relatively short compared to Virgil van Dijk, was having to mark the Dutchman. Not too sure about that decision, but it is what it is. And then for the second goal, it was a quick counter-attack, really. It was a save that was made from Alisson after a Manchester United break. And Salah was in. He was onside, apparently. 1-on-1. And he managed to slot under David De Gea to seal the win in the 92nd minute. And now, of course, they're unbeaten. They were obviously unbeaten throughout the whole year in 2019 in the Premier League. And this could be a better year for them. Maybe the same result, really. They went 2019 unbeaten. Maybe they can try and go 2020 unbeaten, have a really good start to the first year of the new decade. Manchester United, though, they lost their chance to close their gap to the top four. They're still 5 points behind Chelsea, who we're going to talk about. But Liverpool, of course, 64 points. And, if they keep up this rate, they could potentially have the highest ever Premier League points in history. Of course, there have been a few teams that have broken the 100 club. Most recently, Manchester City in 2017-18. They got 100 points. Liverpool are only 36 points away. There's 16 games left. So they're pretty much going to have to average just under 2.5 points a game. Which, if you go by their current form, they've only drawn one game. And that was to Manchester United in the reverse fixture. So, yeah, it wasn't the same threat as it was last time, you could say. But, yeah, Liverpool just absolutely doing bits. But for Manchester United, that's 2 defeats in the past 3 games. Obviously, they did win against Norwich, but, after that little spell they had in the Christmas period, where they did start to get some momentum going. Of course, the likes of the big wins that they had over the likes of Manchester City and Spurs. I really did think that maybe Manchester United were an outside shot for top 4 at the time, but now I think they're joint, they're joint points with Wolves in 6th place. So really, it does look like the Europa League is beckoning for Manchester United. Of course, is there still going to be a change? Is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer still going to be in a job by the end of the season? I'm not too sure. It depends whether Ed Woodward's sort of plans, the board objectives, are fulfilled. I'm not too sure though whether that will be a wise decision to maybe sack Solskjaer, especially now when they still have a fair bit of the season to go. But yeah, of course, Manchester United have been obviously still embarking on Bruno Fernandes, of course, the young, well, I say young, 24-year-old Portuguese midfielder from Sporting Lisbon, and their backup target was Donny van der Beek, but they have lost out to Real Madrid. It does look like Real Madrid are going to sign Donny van der Beek. This has been going on for almost a year now. Obviously, Donny van der Beek plays for Ajax, is a very good player, and of course he's been linked with Real Madrid and Manchester United for the past 12 months really for Real Madrid. But yeah, it does look like Manchester United are going to lose out on Van der Beek and potentially on Fernandes, because he has been asked to play the next match for Sporting Lisbon. So it could mean that he might lose out. And we've said this time and again, Manchester United just need to sign players. They've lost Haaland, who we're going to talk about later on in the show, but yeah, really unbelievable that they've lost that on another transfer target. But Manchester United, speaking of that, they're still looking to sign the likes of Edinson Cavani. Obviously, Cavani has actually asked Paris Saint-Germain not to pick him. Not to pick him for their next game against Lorient, in order to actually force a move out, because of course he has been sort of overshadowed. He's a bit overcast. Of course, Mauro Icardi, who played for Inter last season, he's on loan at PSG. They're looking to tie him up on a permanent deal coming this summer. And yeah, I mean, Cavani is 32. Icardi is a couple of years younger. I think he's 27, 28. I'm not too sure about that one. I definitely know he's under 30. But yeah, Cavani at Manchester United. I mean, I would never see the day Cavani would move to the Premier League. It sounds a bit like a FIFA career mode move to me, but you never know. It could happen. And will he be the perfect fit? I mean, Rashford is just over 10 years younger than Cavani, and obviously Cavani is probably going to retire in around half a decade, I would say. But he's still a good striker, definitely. He scored well over 200 goals for Paris Saint-Germain. He's Ligue 1's top all-time goal scorer. So, of course, he has a good record. No matter what age you are, if you can score goals, then that's going to be enough for any club to take an interest in you. But for Manchester United, they do need a striker. Rashford will be out for a few weeks, says Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Now, a few weeks, that could be, maybe, I would predict a month. Of course, he did suffer that injury a couple of days ago, a week ago, I think it was. But I think it could be just less than a month. And of course, if there's a time to sign a striker, it's now, so that they have more availability, because the likelihood is Rashford will come back in early February, and they can't keep playing Martial up front, because of course they only really have Martial and Greenwood, and of course Greenwood isn't really tested in the Premier League. But I mean, like, really, is there sort of another striker that Manchester United could sign? I don't know. Obviously, they had the chance to sign Holland, but of course, that's not going to happen anymore. He's at Borussia Dortmund. But yeah, let me guys know. Well, who do you think Manchester United should sign? But yes, speaking of signings, Liverpool once again are looking to try and inquire about Timo Werner, the Red Bull Leipzig striker. Of course, they're like Fernandes and Manchester United. This transfer has looking to be, cut down. The transfer has looked to happen for almost a year now, because it's been a long time they've been linked with Timo Werner. But Red Bull Leipzig are top of the league. I do apologise if you hear dogs barking, that is downstairs. But obviously, like I said, they are looking to try and maybe sign him as a backup. Well, not a backup, but probably for more competition. But I don't think it'll be necessary, Liverpool. But obviously Liverpool are now 16 points ahead of now second place Manchester City. Of course, they moved up to second last weekend and they stay second, but only just. They salvaged really a 2-2 draw with Crystal Palace at home. Crystal Palace, of course, signed Cenk Tosun on loan from Everton in the January transfer window, and he did score against Manchester City. They really defended well up until the 80th minute, where Sergio Aguero, who broke the record for the all-time top scorer foreign in the Premier League, scored a brace. But then it was a Fernandinho own goal after some good Wilfried Zaha trickery that managed to salvage the Eagles a point. And obviously Cenk Tosun scoring today for Crystal Palace. Many people thought he'd be a flop, but you could say that Crystal Palace have found a Cenk in Manchester City's armour. Excuse the pun, but yeah, that was absolutely atrocious. But yeah, obviously Cenk Tosun, as I said in the last episode, he does have some goal scoring form, but this was a couple of years ago when he was in Turkey with Besiktas. But yeah, his time in England, he's been a flop for Everton. Hopefully he can start scoring some goals for Crystal Palace, because that's obviously been their problem for, I don't even know how many years now, goals up front, because of course Benteke has not been very good in the last few years, and obviously they've had other attempts like Alexander Storloff, one of the worst Premier League strikers I've had the misfortune of laying my eyes on. And of course, Michy Batshuayi, who of course was only there on loan. But yeah, Crystal Palace are actually looking to agree a fee with Dundee United. It's not often I actually go into the depths of Scotland for Scottish winger Scott Banks. Now, I have to say, I know nothing about Scottish football except for Celtic, Rangers, and Kilmarnock. That is it. That is it. I do not know anything else about Scottish football. So, if any of you know Scott Banks, if any of you have seen him, is he any good? I mean, I don't know, but I'm getting very desperate here. But yeah, I do believe that Palace should probably go ahead and sign maybe another striker, because of course this is the same situation they had with Batshuayi. They only gave him on loan, and of course he returned to Chelsea, and he'd been played a couple of times for Chelsea. But yeah, it really only depends on whether they're ready to take the risk. But yeah, speaking of taking risks, Crystal Palace, Manchester City took a lot of risks in that game, not starting Riyad Mahrez, which was kind of ballsy considering Mahrez scored 2 against Aston Villa and was a really good player against Aston Villa. Crystal Palace have now drawn their last 4 games. Incredible. But Roy Hodgson still has them in the top 10. They're on 30 points. And it's been a pretty good season. I mean, I didn't expect Palace to finish 9th, that's for sure. I expected them to, survive in the Premier League. But, yeah, I mean, it's been an okay season, you have to say. Cenk Tosun obviously scoring his first goal. But the defence really has improved. Gary Cahill, James Tompkins, both of them played quite well in the game against Manchester City. So, credit to them. But just that last little lapse of concentration that allowed Aguero to score both goals, that was the one that let them down. But for Manchester City, it's now only 3 wins in the past 5 games. Not too good for that. And of course, 48 points rather. They obviously have opened a gap to Leicester, who we'll talk about in a bit. But City, of course, I've said it again and again and again, they need to sign a defender, 100%. I mean, the gossip that they're linked to, the transfers that they're linked to, I'm not even sure how many transfers they're actually linked to be fair, Manchester City. But, yeah, obviously, they are still looking to try and offload the likes of Benjamin Mendy and João Cancelo. I don't know how. I mean, Cancelo hasn't really been very good, even though he had a good season with Juventus last season. But, it is what it is. And, hopefully City can sign a defender, because their fragility at the back is still, noticeable going ahead to this game. But, yeah, obviously, speaking of fragility, Leicester City, 2 defeats in a row, and that's 3 defeats in the last 5 games. And, we spoke about Leicester, of course. I think it was 7 points behind Man, 7 points behind Liverpool, I think they were in on match day number 17. And this was, I think, in Christmas. They were only 7 points behind Liverpool. Now they're 16. So obviously it looks like the title race is over, as I said. But Leicester, I mean, what's happened to them? They lost away from home at Burnley. Now the Southampton game was really good, but this was similar. Harvey Barnes scored a quite brilliant goal, solo goal, to put the Foxes 1-0 up and looked like they were going to go back to second in the table. But Chris Wood, of course, scoring against his former club, that made it 1-1. Nick Pope done something very rare, and that's saved a Jamie Vardy penalty. And then at the other end, Ashley Westwood scoring a last-minute winner. Westwood does not get on the score sheet much, and he's not really been one of Burnley's standout players. He's been sort of quietly going under the radar, sort of average, like a meh player. But this was one of his moments. He's a key player for Burnley. Why do you think Burnley have used him for every single season? He's played 30 plus games ever since Burnley's returned to the top flight in 16-17. But yeah, really good result for Burnley, and that means that they stopped a run of 4 consecutive defeats to get their first win, and their first win at home for quite a long time. I think since November. I'm not too sure about that one. But Burnley are now, what is it now? They are 5 points away from the relegation zone. Very, very good win for Burnley. Leicester are still in the Champions League positions. They're 11 points ahead of Manchester United in 5th. So can they maintain that top 4? If it will, again, it'll be a fantastic achievement for Brendan Rodgers, of course, who obviously had a really good squad to work with. But the reason why Leicester have lost 3 of the last 5 games is the fact that they've had an injury to Wilfred Ndidi, who is one of the most underrated Premier League players. He wins the ball back so many times. He is literally Kante, but a taller version. Honestly, he's been unreal for Leicester since he arrived in 2016. So really good, but they need him back to try and maintain their top 4. Otherwise, it could slip away. But Burnley doing well, of course. I don't think they're looking to sign anyone. Although they have been linked with Hull City striker Jared Bowen for almost £20 million. I'm not sure if that will happen, to be fair. Leicester, of course, still looking to try and sign Mehdi Demiral from Juventus. So maybe the chance could be of ours to sign. But Leicester's still trying to sort of get their season up and coming. But yeah, it does depend whether Leicester City can continue. Speaking of Chelsea, they absolutely bottled the chance to close up to the likes of Leicester City and Manchester City, and that's because they lost to Newcastle, a last-minute winner from Isaac Hayden. Very unexpected. Isaac Hayden's been around for Newcastle for the last couple of years, but Steve Bruce finally ends that little horrible sequence of runs that they had. Despite them being 12th, Newcastle only had not obviously they needed a replay to get past Rochdale, but there were 3 defeats in their last 4 games coming into this one, and they really needed the win, of course. Joe Linton hit the crossbar as well. Has Joe Linton turned I'm going to stick by that. Has Joe Linton turned the corner? Of course, I know scoring against Rochdale is like scoring against a 13-year-old goalkeeper, but he has started to get some chances now, Joe Linton, and he can take them. And yeah, definitely really good win for Newcastle United. Of course, looking to maybe sign a striker in the January transfer window. Of course, Joe Linton, these 2 games, they're not really going to do anything for his confidence. But, can, he kick on? Obviously, he is a good striker. He can play. So, is this maybe another time for Joe Linton to try and get something out of this? But, obviously, Newcastle have actually tried. They've been linked with a few players in the January transfer window, but actually Newcastle are actually close to signing Valentino Lazaro, who is on loan from Inter Milan for £20 million. And he's not too bad, Lazaro. I have seen him play a couple of times, but, I think he suits Newcastle. He's sort of like that Miguel Almiron. So I think, obviously, the support there. This would obviously be a replacement signing for Christian Atsu, who I would say hasn't really done a lot. But, obviously, I really do think that maybe Um, they could try and maybe sign a striker. Maybe. Obviously, we see what has happened with Swansea City signing Ryan Brewster from Liverpool on loan. Maybe they could sign another up and coming young talent to St James's Park. Of course, they do have Carroll, they do have Joe Linton, they do have Dwight Gale, but obviously Dwight Gale is injured now. But we'll see. Maybe they could sign Mason Greenwood on loan. Just obviously, I know how ridiculous that sounds, obviously, but it would be a decent option for Steve Bruce. But good win for them. For Chelsea though, I don't know. I mean, Chelsea are looking to obviously sell Olivier Giroud, and they are also contacting for the signing of Timo Werner. They're looking to rival Liverpool for the signing of Timo Werner. But of course, January transfer window is still open. Another week and a half of it. So obviously, we'll have to see what happens with them. Norwich City and Bournemouth played out a bottom of the table clash in which Norwich City won. Teemu Pukki scoring his 10th goal of the season, finally. And both teams had players sent off. Steve Cook for handball on the goal line. Not speaking of it, and Norwich had Ben Godfrey sent off for a second yellow card. But I have to talk about Norwich's new signing, Andre Duda, who I believe was signed on loan from Hertha Berlin. He looks pretty decent, He was probably the standout player for Norwich, and I know Pukki and Cantwell were pretty good as well. But I would say Duda was the standout player for Norwich. Norwich have decided to spend their money now. They've signed a few players, but most of them on loan. But I do still think they're going to go down if you look at the table. But Bournemouth, the situation gets even worse. They needed a defender. Obviously, Josh King is out injured, and they haven't won since November. Not a very good time to be a Bournemouth fan. And of course, all that optimism about Eddie Howe being one of the best managers in England, well, he's really going to have to try and have his work cut out here to keep Bournemouth in the Premier League. But we have seen it before. We saw it in 16-17. They were in a similar situation like this, and they got out. Can he do it again? I really want to see Bournemouth in the Premier League for another decade or so, because they are a good team. Really, you can't underestimate them. They've had a decent season. They've won against Manchester United. They've won against Tottenham at the back end of last season. They've won against Chelsea away from home. So, claiming some big scalps this season. But, injuries like Newcastle have affected them. But, who knows what will happen. They're lining up a £10 million move for Middlesbrough's centre-back Dale Fry. Now, I have to say, Middlesbrough are, I believe, near the playoffs in the Championship. Obviously, I'll go through the Championship in a bit. But I'm not too sure if it'll be any good. Brighton and Aston Villa played out a 1-1 draw. Of course, both teams still above the relegation zone. Southampton had the most informed striker in the Premier League so far in Danny Ings. He did not score today, but Southampton threw away a 2-0 lead to lose 3-2 to Wolves. And Wolves are now obviously level on points with Manchester United. What a season Wolves have had. I've said it before. Even though they're in the Europa League group stage, it's not affecting them. It really isn't. And we've seen this before. With the likes of Burnley and Leicester in the Champions League a couple of seasons back. It really isn't affecting them. They've done really well. Adama Traore and Raul Jimenez starring once again. Pedro Neto looking like a decent young talent for Wolves as well. He's been amongst the goals recently as well. So obviously we'll have to see what will happen there. And obviously they are looking to sign a replacement striker for Patrick Cutrone, who of course has joined Fiorentina on a 18-month loan. So he'll come back at the start of 2021-22 season. So maybe a striker for the next 18 months will be all right. But who will sign them? I have no idea. Of course, Cutrone is still young. He's still 22. But I mean, goodness knows who they're going to sign. But it does look like maybe Wolves could challenge yet again for Europe, and that'd be an outstanding season if they can do that. But Southampton, of course, one of the most informed teams coming into it, but they'll bounce back. I mean, Hasenhüttl has absolutely changed that side. But absolutely brilliant stuff they've done. Another club who are looking to try and sign Jared Bowen in the January transfer window. He's one of the most informed strikers in the Championship, Jared Bowen, who we'll talk about in a little while. West Ham and Everton played out a 1-1 draw. Dominic Calvert-Lewin managed to salvage a point for Everton after West Ham went ahead through Issa Diop, who was coming under a little bit of criticism during Pellegrini's reign, but it looks like it seems to have been all together now under David Moyes. So, yeah, good draw for West Ham, of course, pulling themselves away from safety. But, for Everton, another missed opportunity to climb back into the top 10. Watford, another informed team. They faced Tottenham at home and drew 0-0. Troy Deeney having a penalty saved by Paulo Gazzaniga. VAR, of course, the goal line technology, ruled it out a goal for Lo Celso by 10 millimeters. That's absolutely so close. And Watford, of course, who are out of the relegation zone, really, really needed that to, put even more praise on Nigel Pearson. But in midweek, they had their cup fixture postponed against Tranmere, which means they're going to be playing 4 games in 9 days. This was the first. Absolute madness. How are they going to deal with it? I'm not too sure. I think that they'll deal with it in the Watford way. I think the Watford way will be they'll focus more on the league than they do in the cup. Obviously, just ignore last season. Just completely ignore last season. The fact that they got to the final. But, I think they will, try and go, not too concentrating on the cup, of course, because they are still looking to survive in the Premier League. There's still another 15 more match days to go in the Premier League. But Watford drew with Tottenham, of course. Tottenham, another chance missed to close the gap on the top 6. In Mourinho now under a little bit of pressure, but it's now, could be maybe a time where pressure might be starting to mount on Mourinho. No wins in the last 4, with 2 of them being defeats to Southampton and Liverpool. I don't know. Is the pressure starting to mount on Mourinho? Of course, he's a good manager. He's one of the best in the world. But, it depends whether he can get this back, really. If he can get this run of form going back. But for Watford, obviously, they are out of the relegation zone. Aston Villa still in the relegation zone. Only 1 point behind Watford and West Ham. And Arsenal drawing against Sheffield United. And Sheffield United, of course, the surprise of the season for me. 7th place. 2 defeats in a row before their home tie against West Ham in the Premier League last weekend. They're now a win and a draw in their last 2 games to put them only 2 points, only 1 point, in fact, behind 5th place Manchester United. So, yeah, Sheffield United just doing absolute wonders. John Fleck scoring his 4th goal of the season. He's been one of the best Sheffield United players this season, along with the likes of John Lundstrom, Stevens, O'Connell, John Egan as well, Henderson. Pretty much every single player for Sheffield United has really outperformed themselves to most people, I would say. But, obviously, good win for them. They'll probably crack on from this result. But for Arsenal now, it's only 1 win in their past 5. And only 2 wins for Mikel Arteta in the league. And that was against Man United and Chelsea. They'll still stick by him, though. But, whether Arsenal... They keep their unbeaten streak of 3. Obviously, 1 defeat in 5 is a good record. But, it depends really on whether the supporters are happy with Arsenal lying bang on mid-table, with them being around about 5 points off Manchester United. But we moved, to be fair. And, and that is it for the Premier League. The Premier League table then looking like this. Liverpool, Manchester City, the top 2. Leicester City in 3rd. Chelsea in 4th. The Europa League spots currently occupied by Manchester United, Wolves, Sheffield United grabbing that 7th place, which could be vital if they want to secure European qualifying football. In the relegation zone, which still remain Aston Villa, Bournemouth and Norwich City. In the Championship, big weekend in the Championship, and we will start with one of the most controversial games of football that we've seen in a little while, and that was Queen's Park Rangers against Leeds United. QPR winning it by 1-0, but VAR. I did say at the start we will talk about it, but this is probably not what you expected in the Championship. VAR needs to be implemented in the Championship, because if any of you saw Naki Wells, the former Burnley striker, score against Leeds United on Saturday, you will see that he clearly used his hand to control the ball and slot it in. It was from a free kick which deflected off the wall. Naki Wells was onside, but he did control it with his hand and he slotted it home past the Leeds goalkeeper. But it was very, very feisty. There were a lot of cards that should have been shown in the Leeds United game, particularly to the Queen's Park Rangers. A very physical altercation. VAR definitely needs to be implemented in the Championship so as well. We saw in the Liverpool-Manchester United game, if any of you saw that, the Roberto Firmino goal that was ruled out for apparently fouling David De Gea, Virgil van Dijk was. In my opinion, it wasn't really a foul. It was just physical, wasn't it? A little bit of a body check, which you are allowed to do. But, hey, I'm not the referee. I'm not the officials at Stockley Park who are controlling VAR. But, it is what it is. But VAR should have definitely been officiated with this game. And that really was a big blow. And also another blow was the fact that Calvin Phillips, one of the most creative players for Leeds, got sent off for the game. Really, really unbelievable. But Leeds United still staying in the top two, but not without. Obviously, they're not perfect at the moment. Leeds United have lost their last two and only won one of their last five. So hasn't really been the greatest comeback to Leeds as well. West Brom are in worse form. They have not won in their past 6 games. What is going on with West Bromwich Albion this season? They actually, I don't believe they won, to be fair. They are playing tomorrow, but, it's just not happening for them at the moment, West Brom. I'm not too sure what's going on with them. They're still top of the league, though. But, Birmingham City drew with Cardiff City. Jude Bellingham, another player who is on Manchester United's targets. He's 16 years old. He's yet to sign a professional contract with Birmingham City, and he's worth 25 million apparently. Bristol City beating Barnsley 1-0. Derby County, who could be in a relegation battle, they had a points deduction for spending breaches. I'm not too sure what happened there, but they really needed this win, especially after what happened this week. Huddersfield and Brentford, one of the most informed teams in the Championship. Brentford, they drew against Huddersfield Town. Millwall beat Reading by 2-0. Preston beat Charlton 2-1. Sheffield Wednesday absolutely demolished 5-0 by Blackburn Rovers. Former Tottenham and German midfielder Lewis Holtby getting a brace there. And Swansea City gave a debut to Ryan Brewster, and he scored on his debut for Swansea in a 2-1 victory against Wigan Athletic. Nottingham Forest beat Luton 3-1. Nottingham Forest, real, promotion contenders in the playoffs, and also Fulham, who scored through Anthony Knockaert early on Friday to give them a 1-0 win against Middlesbrough to strengthen their grip on the playoffs. So the Championship table then is looking pretty interesting. Nottingham Forest are now the most informed team in the Championship, with 4 wins out of their past 5. They're 47 points. It's so close in the Championship. Honestly, 3 points separate 3rd place Fulham and 6th place Swansea, who are now into the playoffs. Millwall are outside the playoffs as well. Bristol City, Preston, Sheffield Wednesday and Blackburn only 5 points behind in the playoffs as well. So that's really good as well. Also, it's obviously they lost to Nottingham Forest this afternoon, in fact, and Luton really are looking in trouble, as are Wigan. They can't seem to buy a win at the moment. Barnsley go back to the relegation zone after their defeat against Bristol City, and it does look like West Brom and Leeds starting to feel the pressure. 4 points separate Fulham and Leeds, 2nd and 3rd. It is on in the Championship, the most unpredictable, the most competitive league in England, in my opinion, the Championship. It's so unpredictable. You cannot predict it. And it's a joy to watch. I mean, I've started watching the Championship for quite a while. Since 2014, I watched the Championship, and it's just so unpredictable. And you can't write off anyone in the league. In League One, then, of course, there were changing of the guard last week with Rotherham going top of the table. But the big story in League One is Southend United are winning. They finally got their second win, and no, this is not a dream. This has happened. Southend United are off the bottom of League One. They've had the worst record in the Football League out of any of the sides. They beat Accrington Stanley by 2-1. Wimbledon beating Peterborough United 1-0. A Joe Pigott goal separating the two sides. Portsmouth looked like they could be trying to get back into the playoffs. They beat Bolton Wanderers 1-0. Coventry beat Doncaster Rovers away from home 1-0 as well. Shrewsbury, who caused a decent upset against Bristol City in the FA Cup to book their spot against Liverpool in the fourth round. They drew with Fleetwood Town 2-2. Oxford United, who were top of League One, were held by Gillingham. Lincoln City capped off a brilliant week. They beat Oxford United 5-1 midweek, and they beat Blackpool 1-0. Sunderland looked like they could be on the charts for the playoffs as well, beating MK Dons 1-0. Rotherham United beating Bristol Rovers 3-0. Ipswich finally ended their barren run of form, as did Wycombe. Both of them won 2-1 against Tranmere and Rochdale respectively. So the League One table looking pretty interesting, if I have to say so. Right now, Rotherham United, of course, 5 wins in a row. Wycombe had 3 defeats in 4, but they are level on points now with Rotherham, and it's so close. Coventry City are in form as well as Sunderland, and Burton Albion as well. They're looking to climb back into the playoffs. To give you an idea of how competitive League One is, Rotherham and Wycombe both tied on 47 points. 2 points separate second from third Ipswich. Then 4 points separate Ipswich in third and Portsmouth in 7th. And 4 points separate Sunderland in third with Lincoln City in 12th. It's so unpredictable. And of course, the relegation battle between AFC Wimbledon, MK Dons and Tranmere Rovers hotting up as well. Wimbledon pulling away a little bit now from the League One relegation zone. The results then in League Two: Bradford City, who were held to a draw against Scunthorpe United. Stevenage climbed out of the relegation zone due to an emphatic 4-0 win against Cambridge. Former Gillingham midfielder Elliot List scoring for them. Colchester beating Macclesfield by 2-1. Crewe Alexandra looking like they're probably promotion contenders. They beat Cheltenham by 1-0. 9-man Salford managed to hang on to a 2-1 victory at Forest Green Rovers. Nicky Law scores for Exeter as they beat Grimsby by 1-0. Jamil Matt, FA Cup hero, of course, if you looked at their run last season that they had, he scored against Swindon Town to try and reinstate Newport County's bid for the playoffs. Northampton as well condemned Morecambe to bottom of the Football League after they beat them 4-1. Oldham Athletic Oldham Athletic drew against Carlisle United 3-1, 1-1 rather. Plymouth Argyle beat Mansfield 3-1. Port Vale beat Leyton Orient 1-0. Walsall with a Josh Gordon goal with a win against Crawley Town. And on Tuesday, Morecambe tried to get out of the relegation zone, and that was for the 2-1 victory at Port Vale. And this is how the League 2 table is looking right now. Swindon Town, of course, well, 2 wins in their last 5 isn't exactly champions form, but they are still at the top of the table, but battling hard with Exeter. Crewe are still in there. They could still spring a surprise by going up, as could Bradford, Plymouth. Cheltenham Town are in the playoffs as well. It's so close. It's third place Crewe on 47 points. Only 3 points separate them and 9th place Forest Green Rovers. Absolutely incredible, really. And Exeter are just the form team in League 2 at the moment. Morecambe and Stevenage are level with 22 points, but of course Stevenage have a better goal difference than Morecambe. Carlisle and Macclesfield still battling against the drop for them. And of course Newport County's 2 wins in a row have started to put them back into the playoff picture. 8 points. Surely they can bridge the gap. I did say that I'm going to be talking about Erling Braut Haaland, and he scored a hat-trick on his debut against Augsburg as Borussia Dortmund beat them 5-3. Absolutely great, brilliant result that reinstates Dortmund's bid for the title. It's still a three-way horse three-horse race really for the title between Bayern Munich, who beat Hertha Berlin 4-0 with Lewandowski and Thomas Müller getting on the score sheet for them. Also, in the Serie A, Inter Milan, the leaders, were held by Lecce, the bottom side. Lukaku surprisingly didn't score for Inter Milan, so a rare off day for Antonio Conte's side. Real Madrid beating Sevilla by 2-1. Casemiro's double helping them to top of La Liga. And of course, the big news this week in La Liga is that Barcelona sacked head coach Ernesto Valverde for Quique Setién, the former Real Betis boss. Am I surprised? I mean, this is a club that pretty much has aims to win the domestic treble every single season. The fact that they're not, ever since the treble that they won in 2015, ever since they won that treble, they haven't won the Champions League. They haven't even reached the Champions League final. Remember, last two Champions League seasons they bottled it against Roma and against Liverpool. But in terms of league-wise, they're doing okay. But maybe this is more largely to do with the fact that they did lose in the Copa del Rey semi-final against Atletico Madrid. But that is it, guys, for this weekend's roundup of the EFL and of Europe. And that is also it for the 21st episode of the Chris Talks Football Podcast. Hopefully you have enjoyed this episode. If you did, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new. And as always, I will see you guys very soon.